Hey, welcome on in everybody to the solo Group Hardcore Ironman series. Today I'm just going to be showcasing a little bit of what my current PVM goals are. So right now I'm sitting on a Black Demon task and I have been working on doing demonic gorillas for zenytes. So apart from the Cerberus grind that I've also been working on, these are two of the PVM adventures that I'm sort of taking on right at this moment because they're both tied to the Slayer skill and Slayer tasks, obviously. So you can do Demonic Gorillas on a Black Demon task, and you can do Cerberus on a Hellhound task. In fact, you actually need to be on a Hellhound task to do Cerberus. Demonic Gorillas, it is possible to do them off task, but it's not recommended because you get such large amounts of Black Demons as a task that it just makes sense to go and get like 180 on task. Let me type. There we go. We have 163 on task. So why not just go get a massive task of Black Demons? Then you can do this long Demonic Gorillas on task. So it just makes sense to always do them on task. I highly recommend that you never do them off task. And yeah, so Black Demons have been something that I always block. One, because my Slayer method is mostly teleporting to the catacombs after recharging prayer in my house with my house altar. And then what I do is I run into my catacombs portal and go to my Slayer task, use my full prayer points, so from 80-ish, whatever prayer I'm at, 70 to 80, down to 0, and when I run out, I tally back to house, recharge, and go back again. This saves me from using prayer pots, which are a very, very limited resource for any Ironman account. However, Black Demons are in the very far northeastern portion of the catacombs. Therefore, it's very, very annoying to have to run that far every single time you lose 80 prayer. So if I were to do a task that's like really far from the entrance to the catacombs, I typically it needs to be done in just a few trips, which Black Demons do not take. Black Demons take many, many trips because they have a very high amount of health and some decent defense. So the tasks are very slow and drawn out. Therefore, you would need to run back and forth from the altar like 20 or more times because you're only going to get like 10 or 15 kills per trip there, if that, with your 80 prayer points. So, however, something like Hellhounds, I don't block because I don't mind doing them because once you teleport to your house, recharge prayer, come back to the catacombs through the portal, you go down in the statue and you're literally within sight of the Hellhounds. It's a quick one click and you're in the spot to just AFK with auto retaliate. So I do my Hellhound tasks, but I do not do Black Demons for those reasons. So right now I have unblocked Black Demons, and during Hellhound tasks I will do Cerberus. So currently I'm sitting on this Black Demon task, and I'm going to be showing some Demonic Gorillas, so hopefully I can get the other 3 accounts. 2 of them are already doing stars. Again, stars are kind of one of my favorite updates for these 4 accounts, simply due to the fact that I can post up on 2 stars, or 3 accounts doing stars, and then go do stuff like Cerberus, Demonic Gorillas, which require a lot of attention. So I'm going to be pausing here and picking back up whenever I get to the area for the task, and I will see you soon. Alrighty, we are back, and looks like we're about to enter here the cave for the demonic gorillas. So just gonna be sort of explaining a little bit on what these are, how to fight them effectively, and so I do need to keep in mind here I have these escape crystals. They are going to teleport me out if I do not interact with my client for 6 seconds. So I need to make sure that I'm constantly in combat, or rather not in combat. I need to make sure that I'm constantly clicking something because if I do not for at least 6 seconds, it will teleport me out. So that's like the disconnect prevention system. Let me just throw on the entity hider here because it's a little bit clustered in here. I forgot to help worlds, so it looks like we're in a world with a bunch of people. So basically, they attack you 3 times in a row with the same style. If they hit 3 zeros in a row, then what they do is they switch styles, so you constantly have to guess the secondary style that they switch to. Now see, he could have maged me or ranged me, so it's a 50-50 whether I guess it right. But what you'll notice is I'm constantly moving around, and right there. So every time they say raw above their head, what happens is that's their way of switching styles. Now see, he walked at me there, which means I know he's melee, so whenever they walk at you, that's how you know that they're in melee form. Now, that's why you mostly want to step away, because if I stay away from him constantly, then whenever he does switch to melee, I'm instantly told. See, there he walks right up to me because I'm not in melee range to start with. So, yeah, it's a massive prayer sink here, and you do need to use a lot of prayer pots. Ooh, big 30, so making sure I stay full health and constantly pray correctly, and I should be able to survive if I were to disconnect here. Because of the escape crystals, they would telling me out. So after I disconnect, 6 seconds would pass. I would be taking damage for 6 seconds, but hopefully if I can survive that for the 6 seconds, then I would get teleported out automatically by the escape crystals. So, and the second part of Demonic Gorilla's mechanics is that not only are they switching styles, but you need to switch styles constantly. Because every 50 damage you do, they switch their overhead prayer to what you are currently using on them. So every 50th damage dealt. Now, if you hit 49 damage, say, and then hit a big 35, you're still going to have dealt that full 35 damage. It's just that once the 50th damage point threshold is reached, they switch overhead prayers. So there I only hit a 10, but that was part of the last 50. So he switched to pray range. So then I have to arc light him. And there I hit him about twice with the arc light. Usually procs them to switch because the arc light hits very hard. Arc light can hit up to 45s and 50s pretty commonly. It's a very accurate weapon as well. And yeah, hopefully, we snipe a zenyte here. Maybe I'll go into some of what we're going to talk about this video in general. Every time you have to guess there, you have the potential to get hit a 30. They max hit 30s, so you can easily take 20 to 30 damage every time they switch styles if you are unable to guess which one that they are going to use on you. So, oh, there's another 28. And if you notice, they dropped me 2 sharks and 2 prayer potion 3 doses. So they do drop a good bit of supplies on a regular basis to help you sort of stay here for a longer duration, which is very nice. And lastly, they will drop a boulder that falls from the sky onto your head. Basically, it'll always do a percent of your current health. So it hits very hard. It'll always be like a 30 if you're at full health. So you do want to make sure that you are constantly moving around to dodge that, as well as moving away from the gorilla as much as possible in between attacks. So that way you can tell, okay, if he walks at me, see right there, I see the gorilla walked towards me. So that's a guaranteed telltale sign that he is now in melee form. Other than that, it's a guess on whether he's going to range or mage you 50-50, because he just stays at the distance and will then use one of those 2 styles. And since they're both distanced attacks, you won't be able to tell which one he's going to use. Oh, there, another had to guess there. guess wrong, so I take some damage. That's pretty much the only way you take little bits of chip damage, is if you have to make that guess and you guess wrong. So very frequently you do have to make this decision, and unfortunately you will be wrong a lot of the time right here. So it's basically whenever he goes from melee to one of the others, because if he's, I'll explain right now. So he's currently maging and he didn't move, so that I know he's ranged. If he moved towards me, he would be melee. So it's only a guess when he goes from melee to one of the other two styles, because then he just stands still and will use one of them. And again, with them both being distanced attacks, you won't be able to know which one he's about to use. So currently the setup here is the arc light with broad bolts, the rune crossbow. I am bringing very minimal switches for multiple reasons. So one, I can be a lot more efficient on my offensive prayer usage if I have less switches to worry about. A lot of people will bring like fire cape with the Ava's device. They'll bring an amulet switch for, anguish to fury or torture. But right now we do not have an anguish because I have yet to get a zenyte. So right now I'm just okay with the one-way switch here. It's very convenient to just click the arc light and immediately be in full switch. I am camping the ranged d'hide body for the ranged bonuses, as well as camping the Varric skirt, which is excellent for defense and prayer. So it's kind of like a hybrid melee ranged armor setup here. And if I were to bring any other switches in addition, I would definitely bring the amulet switch if I had an anguish, because it gives 5 ranged strength as well as better accuracy bonuses for ranged. So it would make my crossbow hit a lot better. And it's very easy to just do like a boom boom, like little double click switch to do 2 items in a switch. That's very similar to the ease of use of even just the one-way switch. So my first zenyte, I will probably be making an anguish for this, and as well as Basilisk Knights. Currently I'm just camping the Amulet of Fury for Basilisk Knights. So whenever I get a zenyte, I will be probably making that to help out with these tasks. So for these and Basilisk Knights, both of those tasks, I'm just sitting here with a rune crossbow constantly attacking, so having the anguish would be nice. But I also do want a Ring of Suffering, because it would be great to have for multiple reasons. One is Zulrah. Zulrah, it allows you to put basically infinite recoil charges into it. And Zulrah being a boss where you need constant amounts of recoil damage to kill off the snakelings that spawn, you need to constantly re-equip a 40 damage charge Ring of Recoil, because with only 40 charges or 40 damage recoiled, it will break. So you're constantly having to re-equip new ones, and if you forget even for a couple seconds, the snakelings will just hit you constantly and not get recoiled on, so they will not be killed off. Therefore, you just take a ton of damage. Although it's not a dangerous death there with the diary done, it's definitely just an inconvenience to just lose all your food on that one kill and have a shorter trip and whatnot, as well as it does give defensive bonuses and prayer. So it's excellent for Zulrah in that regard, and then also for when I go to God Wars. So God Wars, my primary tank for bandos, I will definitely want to wear a Ring of Suffering, so I'm hunting multiple zenytes to get a suffering for my God Wars tank. And the best reason for that is the high amounts of magic and range defense. So yes, it does give 20 to all defensive stats, but primarily interested in that magic and range defense on it, because bandos, your tank, has to constantly pray melee for his powerful melee attacks. He can hit 60 damage or higher in a single punch. So you can't afford to tank that or risk that. So what you have to do is you pray melee as the tank, which means whenever he slams the ground and shoots the ranged attack at all players in the cave, you're just at mercy to whatever he rolls on that hit. So there's no way for you to pray against it, having to keep pray melee on. So you'll take 0 damage from his melee attack, and there's a melee minion that you'll also never take damage from because you're praying melee. However, you will take damage from ranged and magic. So there's a mage minion and there is a ranged minion. So both of these minions will constantly hit you off prayer if you are the tank. So you do need a plentiful amount of magic and ranged defense. Obviously, ranged defense will double help you when it comes to tanking Bandos' ranged projectiles, but you also want that magic defense for the mage minions. So, because generally what happens is you want to stack a ton of ranged defense, which includes like heavy plate bodies and plate legs from barrows, which is what I would do. But what happens when you tank up in that regard is these armors give you a heavy negative mage defense, or at least something like the Varric skirt will give you no help. It'll just give you a 0 effect on your mage defense. So it is important to get like a Carol's Top and a Ring of Suffering, because that added bit of mage defense is what sort of helps you survive the constant onslaught of the mage minion just hitting you. Otherwise, he's pretty much going to accurately connect on all of his attacks, and you're just going to take a bunch of chip damage from this minion. So that's the difficult part about ranged and mage defense, is that most things that offer ranged defense typically have negative mage defense. So the Ring of Suffering kind of fills in that gap of giving you a ton of everything, most importantly filling in that bunch of mage defense that you're missing. Apart from that, PVM aside, I have been slowly working on a few quality of life things, as always, right? One quality of life is the seed box, so I would like to finish all 4 seed boxes. Currently I have 3 of them done, so I am 3/4 of the way done with that grind in its whole. Just need to go back and get 250 tithe points on my 4th remaining account that is still missing the seed box, and then I will have a seed box on every account, which is excellent for things like Karasks, Aberrant Specters, I think even Cave Horrors, a place where like you're gonna take a full inventory of Karambwan because they're usually far from a bank, and then you're not. Let's say you get like multiple seed drops in a row, like a Quarm and a Lantodime, and then maybe a Toeflax seed. You don't want to just have to drop and juggle constantly 3 Karambwan or waste them by just eating them or leaving them on the ground. So that's what I mean by it's a huge quality of life upgrade to just have that luxury of just throwing them all in the seed box, and you actually just keep it open in your inventory, and what happens is seeds just automatically populate inside the box, so you don't even need to put them in. Just loot them as normal and they'll go in on their own, so that's very nice. So I've been working on that. I've been also working on making planks for mahogany homes. So I'm still always working on construction because my goal is to have the max pull, so the rejuvenation pull, the ornate one. This is built in the Superior Garden level 65 room in your POH, and basically it is the be all end all pool for your house. So There are multiple tiers of pools that you can build in your house, and they all restore different stats and abilities. So just having the fully maxed out upgraded one will restore everything. So that's prayer, run, spec, and health. So that's a big one, the health at the end. I do currently have one that will restore my run energy on all 4 accounts built, but I would like to get at least the one that does prayer and spec as well on every account, and then obviously the finalized one, the highest tier is the one that also heals you to full health too. So it's nice to be able to do, like, for example, I'm doing like a greater demon or Dagonoth task. So I'm at 85 prayer. I use all my prayer on the task down to 0 prayer points. And then what I like to do is I like to stay there and just use my armor's defense a little bit to tank out the task. Because what happens is they'll hit a lot of zeros, so you can get a lot more kills in on your Slayer task by just tanking them out for a little bit, for a minute or two. And then usually you take some chip damage and you're like half HP, and then it's like, okay, now I go to my house, recharge prayer at my pool or my altar, and then I go back, but without the max pull, I won't heal, so I'll still be half HP when I get back. And then when my prayer again drains from full to 0, I won't be able to do this little tactic of like staying around and tanking a couple, because I'm just already low health. I've already kind of exhausted my health total as a resource. But with the max pull, that's just going to be a quick in and out of the house, and then I will come out with full prayer and fully healed as well, so I can repeat this sort of strategy that I like to try to do just to maximize the effectiveness of all of my house trips with restoring, my stats and prayer during Slayer. Because it's a lot of trips back and forth from Slayer task to house, back through the Koren portal, back to the Slay task. So whatever you can do to just get a little bit of more time into, fighting your Slayer task, the easier it is, the less trips you have to make, etc. So, but yeah, amongst obviously these demonic gorilla and Cerberus goals, and then some various skilling goals there, I do plan on going back to Barrows at some point. So I have a Magic Fang from Zora, which upgrades my Trident. So before I was using Ibins, then after that, once I got a Trident, I used a Trident. And I was sort of just using that, even without the Occult Necklace sometimes. So I did a lot of Barrows early on these accounts to where I did not have this level of gear. So now going back with an Occult, going back with sort of infinite mage pot. So my plans there at Barrows is to go for more Varrock skirts. So currently I only have 3 Guthan sets. I say only, like that's a lot of Guthan sets to have, but I would not be opposed to just having 4 Guthan sets. That way, whenever they're applicable to any scenario, whether I'm doing Dagonoth Kings or God Wars, not having to repair a set and then trade it over to another account. There's just quality of life of that. So I wouldn't mind having the ability to do that. So having a 4th set wouldn't be too bad. But I mostly am seeking Varrock skirts. So the Varrock skirt is, I think this is what my favorite item personally. I think that obviously the Carol's top is extremely powerful. Aram's robes have their place. But where I'm going to be using Aram's, I only really need the 1 set, and I do have that 1 set. Currently, I am still seeking multiple Varrock skirts pieces because I'll explain why I think it's one of the most powerful items, and a lot of people don't really care about it, is because 1, Varrock's is the only Barrows set that gives prayer. So it gives, I think it's like 3 prayer bonus. So that goes a long way whenever you're constantly using prayer on specific PVM encounters or whatnot. And then it's also an extremely powerful tank leg. So when you look at its stats in defense that it gives to compared to like Torag legs or Darok legs, which match it in its melee defenses, the Varrock skirt actually only gives a small amount of range defense less than those 2 legs. So it's essentially the same, except it gives prayer and it has a little bit lower range defense. But I do think that trade-off is very worth it because not many things use range on you. So for Slayer, you're just tanking melee attacks. So it doesn't really matter if you have, a ton of range defense in particular. I think of Bandos, my primary tank, I could then, in that instance, since you're going to be tanking ranged hits from Bandos and the range minion, it wouldn't be a bad idea to just camp like a Darok's legs piece for just the maximum amount of defense bonuses there. But all of my attackers, I would like them to, my 3 attacking accounts that aren't tanking, I would like them to have a Varric Skirt because 3 prayer bonus goes a long way when you're camping protect from range and piety. So being in control of 4 accounts in God Wars is going to be, especially with their hardcore Ironman too, it's going to be a lot of management of my stats. It's going to be a lot of management of my boosts, my prayer, my overheads. I'm going to be using thralls. I'm going to be trying to use potion share on the lunar spellbook from my main tank. I'm going to be trying to pick up the bones in between kills, convert them to peaches for healing. I need to make sure that my tank sips a brew dose every now and then because brew dose gives you maximum amounts of defense boost. So yeah, super combat will boost your attack, strength, and defense, but a brew actually gives a higher defense boost than even a super defense does. So brewing up just roughly every kill, re-combat potting, it's going to be kind of important. I don't know if I'll have to do this every kill, maybe every 2 though for sure. So yeah, prayer goes a long way and just helping me not have to constantly manage my prayer points on all 3 attackers as well as my tank. So, because here's how it's going to go. My attackers should only really take a little bit of chip damage from the mage minion and the melee minion. Now the melee minion will very rarely ever hit, but the mage minion might actually slap them from time to time. So whoever he does end up targeting will take some frequent chip damage from this mage minion. So I'll need to watch their health ever so slightly. But my main tank is going to be not only tanking 2 minions as well, but eating up to 35 damage every time Bandos slams the ground. So the primary focus is going to have to be on my tank, keeping him in a healthy spot from the Bandos' primary ranged attack, because that is going to absolutely take out the most of my health over time. And if I can't properly keep my tank alive, then none of my accounts will stand a chance in there. So, yeah, that's kind of the goals there for God Wars. I'm going to be going back to Barrows, try to get some more Varric skirts. I have quite a bit of Varric's helms, but I think currently I'm hunting Basilisk Jaws so that I can wear Nezi face guard there. That would be excellent. Right now I have 2 Serp helms, so I could use these. They give +5 strength, whereas the face guard gives +6 strength and 3 prayer bonus. So probably better to have the face guard for that extra prayer as well. That's super high quality of life for constantly praying piety and protect range. but I'm not going to be able to get forward Basilisk Jaws, so, or at least not very anytime soon. So I'm fine with using the SERP. The SERP will give me a ton of defenses, not magic, but it'll give me a ton of melee defense. So alongside with the fact that it's 5 strength compared to 6 strength on the face guard, that I won't miss. That really won't change anything. It's just going to be a tankier option with no prayer. That's kind of the trade-off there. So, yeah, the goal is to suit up with some more Barrows gear and hopefully have some Basilisk Jaws. And then wherever I can't use a Basilisk Jaw, I actually only need one face guard. So I only need one Basilisk Jaw, and then I would be set because I have 2 Serps and the 1 Jaw. So that would be 3 helmets for my 3 attackers. And then my tank, I'm just going to wear the Guthan's helm as my tank, because the Guthan's helm is the highest range defense helm pretty much in the game, and I'm going to be using a Guthan set to heal up on the minions in between kills. So anywhere I can just wear the Guthan's piece instead of having to worry about switching it to heal is going to be good quality of life, okay? Because in between kills, I will have to do a full gear switch just to heal up. And with the Guthans, so it's just gonna be nice to not be able or not have to constantly go with like a 3-way switch into my full Guthans to then start hitting them. I can just do as little switches as possible, as well as the fact that the more pieces you're wearing going into bandos, the more space you'll have to bring from the bank with supplies. So the more super restores, the more brews, all this jazz. So I think my tank is going to wear Guthan's helm, Guthan's plate body, just for that massive amount of range defense, since I'll be susceptible to the ranged minion as well as Bandus' range attacks. And on my tank, I'll just have to bite the bullet and eat some of the mage minion's damage. He will hit me very often with mage whenever he does choose to target me. But with the method that you use tanking bandos, you usually do a what's called a 2-to-1 attacks method. That's where you're going to be attacking bandos twice for every one time he hits you. Now, normally, if you're whipping bandos, you hit him only 1.5 times to every one time he hits you. But you can increase that to 2-to-1 instead of 1.5-to-1 if you step away from him or underneath him in between his attacks. So you can delay his attack speed, and he only hits you once every 2 times you hit him for a long drawn out fight. So and the way the mage minion attacks players inside there is they will always turn to the most recent person who has attacked bandos himself. So with the attackers constantly attacking, and me doing this 2-to-1 method, I'm most likely going to be taking less aggro from the mage minion while tanking. So my attackers will wear, a face guard or a Serp helm, Carol's top, Varric skirt. That's the ideal setup. Primordial boots or dragon boots. My tank is going to wear Guthan's helm, Guthan's body, and then I'm thinking like either Darok's legs because they're better defense than the Guthan's chain skirt. So I can actually look at it right here. Here's the Guthan's skirt. Here's the Darok's legs. So if I remove everything I'm wearing, so I have 0 everything. Guthan's gives what it gives there. Okay, so DH legs, they give +10 to all defenses, +10 to range. And actually, yeah, so that's about it. So this wearing Darok's legs instead of the Guthan's legs is going to give me 10 more range defense. Now, actually, that's a lot less than I thought. So what I'm kind of thinking is I'll just wear the full Guthans, helm, body, and legs. So let me actually pull out some body armors here. So there's the Torag plate. Don't know where my Guthans body is. Looks like I don't have a Guthans set on this account to check, but I do believe the Guthans body is the same as like a Torag's plate body. It's the Guthans skirt that is a little bit worse than the legs of other Barra's sets. So, and then here it looks like wearing the Varric skirt gives me the same 10 to stab slash crush, but it looks like only a +2 range defense, whereas this gives +10. So the Varric skirt has a little bit worse range defense than like the most optimal tank legs, which is Darok's. But like I said, I think since I'm noticing here it's only +10, I might just wear full Guthans, so top, body, and legs. That way my switch is just right to the spear and then back to my whip and my crystal shield. So I'll be wearing crystal shield the tank. This will give me an insane amount of range defense, meaning I'm more likely to tank not only the range minion, will be pretty much indestructible to him, but Bandos' range attack, even though Bandos has this extremely high amount of offensive power, it is possible to absorb his range attack with high range defense and just get hit a 0 instead of a ton of damage. Because something else that a lot of people don't know about Bandos is that his ranged attack doesn't roll like normal attacks. It always hits a very high amount of damage when it does land. So it accurately rolls like any other attack in the game. But if it lands, I think the minimum you can take from it is like 17 and the max is 35. So I think the way it works is it, at worst case scenario, it hits 50% of his max hit. Whereas like normally if you're attacking with like an Abyssal Whip on like a Slayer task, right? You can hit a 1, you can hit a 5, you can hit a 25, you can hit a 50. You can hit anywhere between 1 to your max hit. So this Bandos roll doesn't work the same. The Bandos ranged attack actually has a minimum hit. So when he accurately hits, he's hitting between 17 to 35. So you don't see those like 2s or 1s or 5s. Even as low as a 10 would be better than a 17. He at least hits like a 20 or something. So that's like a guaranteed -1, anglerfish, -1 Brutus, whatever you're using to heal, as well as just that added pressure of slowing down your DPS when you're eating. But that's just for the tank. So just explaining, the fact that he can't hit like a 1, it's less important to defend against the mage minion, for example, because the mage minion, okay, if he accurately hits me, he can roll 1, he can roll a 2, he can roll a 5 or a 10. He can roll between 1 to his max hit, whereas the Bandos one, it's almost a guaranteed fat chunk of damage. So that's why I'm choosing to go with that sort of setup, is because it's going to be better to tank Bandos than it is the mage minion. So we'll see how it goes. I believe that's going to be the best setup, and then just know that, okay, the mage will chip me down. He can hit up to 16s, so, whenever I get hit by the mage minion, it is going to be a guaranteed connect almost, because I will have very negative mage defense with all this tank armor. But I'm just going to have to accept that and do what I can there, knowing that I'm a little bit more versatile against the range minion and Bandos' ranged attacks. So that's sort of the Bandos plans for now. That I have all that sort of figured out, what exactly I'm going to be doing as far as that. Now it's just a matter of training up, and again, I'll be going back to Barrows, so that's my plans for Barrows. I'm working on Zenytes now. I am still doing Cerberus tasks, but I'm not 91 on most of my accounts. So I can only do Hellhounds at Cerberus on my highest Slayer account. I also think that because Cerberus is such a supply drain, that I think I'm gonna want to have to do that only when I'm 99 defense. Now I'm very far away, being only 88 here. And I'm actually nowhere near it. So because I'm 96 strength, the way I'm training my account is I'm using a whip on controlled. So not until I'm 99 strength from using a whip on controlled will I actually then start to hone in on defense. So I'm very, very far away from hitting 99 defense on any other secondary Slayer account. But that is the plan if I do end up doing Serb, is to wear the defense cape. That way I can wear a Berserker Ring Eye, because the Arc Light does a ton of damage, but it's heavily reliant on you having high amounts of strength bonus, because the Arc Light itself is a very weak weapon. Is a very, very low amount of melee strength on its own. So you need bonuses from your amulet, your ring, your boots, your gloves. And yeah, I do have pretty much max gear in that regard. Barrow's gloves, Primordial boots, Fury, and B-Ring Eye. So I will not want to sacrifice +8 on my ring slot to wear a Ring of Life. I always want to wear the Ring of Life effect. Therefore, it's going to have to be done through the defense cape. So I'm fine with that, because currently, again, with working on these tasks, Demonic Gorillas, the Arc Light, I can use it on strength mode. So I would use a whip on strength mode if it had one, but unfortunately the best you can do with a whip is use controlled. So you're unable to hone in on strength, so I'm unable to just do strength and then defense, so I have to work in that shared training, which will include a bit of attack. But again, I'm not unhappy to get the attack, so to speak. It's just going to take a very long time to fully finish off these goals. So slay, slay, slay is the name of the game, and finishing maxing out all of my combat styles. So attack, strength, defense, and then working on 99 range, 99 mage, and high prayer through use of like the ash and bone spells on Zaya, on the Zaya spellbook, the RC spellbook rather, as well as ensouled heads and just other various amounts of prayer from like the ash sanctifier and bone crusher. So there's actually also the ectoplasmator too. So yeah, slowly working up there. Probably going to be 90 plus prayer on every account by the time all of these combat goals are finished. So that's going to be nice to be very, very high prayer whenever I go in to something like God Wars, because the more prayer total you have, the more points each dose of whatever you drink gives. So again, just it's a constant war of attrition. So getting more out of my supplies is going to be helpful when I'm constantly battling my supply management in this room. So just to be some nice quality of life there. And yeah, slaying is the game right now. Was hoping that there would be a nice little zenyte drop here for the video content, but it is what it is. I think I'm around 200 KC combined on now this account, plus my other account that did one full task here. So I'm a little bit over 200 kill count here at Demonics, and the drop rate for zenyte is 1 in 300. So yeah, it looks like we're not getting super lucky, but we're not even at rate yet. So can't really complain until you're like 2 times the drop rate. Then you can start complaining a little bit. So we're just gonna keep slugging away at it. And again, I really like doing this task, because like hitting these big 40s and 45s with the arc light on aggressive style means that I'm getting this massive amount of strength XP, which I normally would not during Slayer. Normally I'm using an Abyssal Whip, so again, getting that controlled XP is a lot slower to ramp your strength up to 99. And I do just like getting 99 as one of my first melee stats for strength. It is, I think, just the most important combat stat, because just having 99 strength means you're just hitting as hard as you can no matter what the scenario is. So not being limited by my lower strength level is pretty nice quality there to have. And yeah, I think just Arclight in general, it's a very powerful weapon, right, for Ironman because it's naturally obtained through getting the shards during Catacomb Slayer. So you're just passively gaining this insane tier of weapon to use against demons. So it's very, very nice to have for Irons. Excellent at Demonic Gorillas, now Cerberus. It used to not work on Hellhounds, but they made an update. I want to say it was at least 2 years ago at this point, that now the Arclight counts on Hellhounds because they're now classified as demons, whereas before they were not. So you could just use them on Hellhounds, but obviously Cerberus being a Hellhound means that's the primary, you know, purpose of that update is that, okay, now you can use it at Cerberus, and that's a boss that's difficult to kill, so it's extremely valuable and important in this scenario. So definitely a very powerful weapon, and I was stacking tons of shards. I'm stacking so many charges through ancient shards, and I wasn't really able to use them because I don't think it's worth it to use on like a greater demons task. I have an abyssal whip now. So before I had a whip, I didn't have that many charges worth of shards yet. And now that I do have a bunch of shards, I have a whip. So it's like I had to make that decision of like, well, it wasn't worth it because I had too few charges, and now that it is worth it because I have a lot of charges, it's not worth it because I have a pretty similarly strong weapon. Now the Arclight's about the same strength, offensively as an Abyssal Whip. It hits about the same amount of damage. It's just the fact that it's a lot more accurate on demons. So if the demon has like high defense, like these guys or black demons, any type of demon, Cerberus, the Arclight is a lot more likely to slice right through that high defense and hit, a big chunk like a 50 or something. So definitely a massive upgrade to an Abyssal Whip on a lot of these demon tasks. So it's one of my favorite weapons in the game. For that regard, I think it's just extremely powerful and lucky to have it in the game as an Iron Man where you don't have the Grand Exchange to purchase weapons. So having to obtain my own weaponry and gear and charges for those charge-based weaponry and gear, Arclight's a very nice addition because you passively gain the shards through Slayer and then you use this extremely powerful weapon. So definitely one of the best weapons in the game, no doubt. I am working on CAs whenever possible, so that's the combat achievements. I did all 6 out of 6, I believe, at Cerberus on the main Slayer account. So whenever I'm 91 Slayer on these other accounts and have the ability to do serve, I will want to slowly work on those as well. The combat achievements there are actually very easy. It's just a matter of having the level to actually do serve. So other than that, it's 150 kill count. So pretty much you just have to do 150 KC at Serb, and you pretty much have all of the CAs done because, especially the way I do Serb, right, I'm praying correctly on the ghosts and doing the boss properly. So most of them happen automatically just from doing the boss normally. There's nothing cheesy like the one Dagonoth King Rex combat achievement says you have to, kill them at the same time as one of the other ones, or kill them all three within 4 seconds of another, or kill Rex with a rune throne axe spec bounced off of Dagonoth Prime. Like, that's a super niche combat achievement that you're not going to get normally just doing Rex KC, because nobody on their right mind would ever do that. So yeah, other than that, I think Abyssal Sire was another one that I was looking at as far as combat achievements go. Some of his combat achievements are kind of cheesy. For example, you have to defeat him without stunning him more than once. So stunning him is where you cast a shadow spell on him So you cast Shadow Barrage on him, and it disorients the sire, so it allows you to attack the respiratory systems. That's how you defeat the boss, is you have to defeat his respiratory systems first. Normally, you can do this in 2 Shadow Barrages because he'll become unstunned about halfway through defeating these systems, so you have to do it twice. So the CA says you have to defeat Sire only doing this one time. And that means basically you have to slowly whittle them down. When he's not stunned, you can still attack these respiratory systems, but they're way more tanky, meaning you only hit like 2s and 3s on them at most. So you have to kind of cheese that one by just safe spotting the ones that are possible and slowly killing them, and then whenever you have them all low enough, you can go actually Shadow Barrage him one time and finish off the remaining respiratory systems with that singular Shadow Barrage stun. So been trying to work on those CAs. I haven't actually completed or done any of them yet, because you have to be on you have to be on task, I believe, for him, much like Cerberus. So I can't just go do it willy-nilly, and also the one task requires you to vengeance his giant explosion attack. So close to the end of the fight, he's going to teleport you to him and then cast an explosion. All you do is simply step away and you don't take damage, but there's a CA that actually wants you to cast vengeance right before this happens and venge that spell back at him for like a 40. So it does require me to tank a 60, and then I have to defeat the boss. So it's not super difficult, but you do have, it gets a little sketchy when you're hardcore because you're guaranteed to take like a 65 to the face as well as any other chip damage. So I'll just be anglered up to 120 so that I don't take very much, of my total health and damage, and then quickly heal it up by combo eating. So shouldn't be a risk at all. It's just one of those sketchy things. And the reason this one was giving me trouble was because the way you fight the sire is, I was explaining, you have to stun him with Shadow Barrage and then defeat his respiratory systems. But you can't do that on the Lunar Spellbook because you need to be on Ancients to be able to stun him with that spell. So I was thinking like, okay, so I need 99 magic because I need to bring my 99 magic cape and Spellbook swap after I do the initial part with Ancients and then swap to Lunars. But then one of my friends was like, oh no, you can just do, there's a spell on Lunars called Spellbook Swap. It's the highest level Lunar spell. It's at 96. And it just totally slipped my mind that this even existed. So I can use that Spellbook Swap to cast. You can swap 2 Ancients with it as a level 96 spell for the stunning through Shadow Barrage. And then after you have brought him out of his little hole from the respiratory systems being defeated, then you can, you're on Lunars, so you can venge that attack. So I went in there thinking that I could defeat the respiratory systems with Ancients, house tab out to my house, go through the Lunar portal, run all the way to the Lunar altar to swap to Lunars, and then run back to the Sire before he despawned essentially. And I'm pretty sure you can go to your house and get back, but I guess going to the altar as well just made it so that I didn't have enough time there to make it back, and he actually went back to his little like cave, and I needed to again defeat the respiratory systems, so that didn't really work. But again, I just was using the wrong method there. I need to just use the Spellbook Swap spell on Lunars, which is 96, so you could Magic Pot to boost that at 92. So that CA doesn't require 99 magic like I thought. It only requires 92. So yeah, that's kind of what's been happening with the CAs. I'm trying to get the hard tier of CAs done because with the hard tier combat achievements completed, it lowers the God Wars dungeon KC that you need. So having that done, which I should be able to do on all 4 accounts, it's going to mean that when I do bandos, that's just less goblins I have to slug through every trip. That's less aviancies that I have to kill, or rather, since I'll be on an aviancy task, that's less of those spiritual mages that I believe you kill. Less imps for Zami and less Saradomin minions for Ziliana. So all God Wars, it's going to be extremely useful to have this ability to just have lower kill count requirements to enter the rooms. Obviously, goblins and imps, you can like one shot, so that's not a big deal. It's mostly going to be down to those other rooms are super nice. So Sarah, it's just less Sarah minions you have to defeat, and then Arma, it's less spiritual aviances that you have to defeat, because I cannot go get ecumenical keys. So I'm a hardcore Ironman, so if I go in the wilderness to get ecumenical keys, which is what people normally do for those 2 rooms, Sarah and Arma, I can't just use ecumenical keys like every other account, because I could potentially die going in the wilderness to get these keys. So it's not worth it to go to the wildy just to speed that up. So I will have to slug out 40 KC, and having this combat achievement unlocked should lower that and make that a lot more efficient to get into the rooms for those trips. So yeah, that's kind of gonna be how I'm gonna wrap up this video. Just was hoping to showcase a zenyte here as I'm closing in on 250 to 300 demonics defeated, so was kind of hoping to get that nice purple loot beam on the ground, show that for a video. Like my last video had a nice little surprise for some of the folks watching. So unfortunately no zenyte, although probably during this task, since I have 124 left, it's very possible that I snipe one. So I might throw on the recorder when it drops and just add it to the end of the video here, but we'll see what happens. So hey, thanks everyone for watching, and until next time, those are the plans. I will see you in the next video.